here. You're gonna have to help me
Right,
with that.
we're live. I'll send you the link.
Okay. Let me.
So, hi, welcome to Starlight Talks. Thank you, whoever has joined us already. That's fast. This week, I'm here with Stephanie Persephone, and we're going to talk about all the things that she's done. She's an artist and started a really cool project called You Don't. Starlight Talks. I didn't mean to do that. I'm gonna send a link to you that is of like the page with all the videos, and it should be like right at the top.
Okay.
So
okay. Hold on while I
sorry,
do that.
we were figuring out logistics. I share the video. So yeah, she has this really cool project called You Don't Look Autistic, where she's paying people that normally don't get represented, such as females and people of all different minorities, ethnicities, and so really cool. And then she has a group called Neurospace, which is on Facebook. That is a great support group and for those on the spectrum, and it talks about like all of our cool talents, and it's a very positive space. Like I found a lot of groups are just complaints, and her group is all about celebrating life, and so it's really fun. Yeah, so that's Stephanie, and then we have, don't forget, we have a support group tomorrow, so go sign up on the website for that tomorrow night at 7. We've had a nice big group. I don't know if they watch this, but if you're from support group, hey, I probably shouldn't say your name, but hi. Thank you for watching.
I'm still trying to figure this out. Hold on. I have to do it on my phone.
So
okay.
OurTism.com, go to services support group to sign up for that.
Meetup. It's on Meetup.
We're also on Meetup. We're located in Redondo Beach, California, in case you're wondering about that. I think those are all the announcements.
Okay. I think I got it. Hold on.
Yeah, we're hoping to get some Neurospace
there we go.
in here watching us.
I did it.
So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and we would love to hear from our audience. Oh, hi Heather Colors or Heather Scholars. I don't know how to pronounce your name.
Spell it out phonetically.
Heather Scholars Reborn. Thank you for joining.
Whoa, that's weird. Okay, I don't know what to talk about.
Would you like to introduce yourself? Just a little bit about you, maybe your diagnosis.
I'm on the spectrum. I wasn't diagnosed until officially until this year, but I've known for like a decade basically. And but my childhood, I had a lot of issues. I'm 33, almost 34 now. My childhood, I had like a lot of like learning issues, and I had TIAs and seizures, and it's weird. I think maybe the time in the 90s and just my family situation, like all the things weren't like linked up when I was a kid, and I had like no idea what was going on. But I did have like some help in school. I had an IEP and stuff. But yeah, I was born 2 months early. And my mom had eclampsia and diabetes, and I basically died and came back. So I had a lot of like, I guess, special needs as a kid. And language processing, and I had a speech delay, and have had basically like understanding autism the past few years that I've really tried to I've looked into it and understanding like all these issues that I've had in my life and have now, or like just the differences that I have, and just the situations I've been in where there's been like a disconnect, or just almost like I've always felt like was something going on, like something was wrong with me, or like people didn't get me. People tend to think I'm pretty weird, which I'm always fine with. But it really like connected everything ever that I've ever experienced together in like one thing. So with like my group Neurospace, I really wanted to like bring that understanding not only of like autism, but like help people who may be on the spectrum too, that don't know they are, and are looking for resources. Because I think there's a lot of people that are around my age and older, that because there wasn't a lot of awareness prior to like the 2000s, really, that have been struggling their whole lives, and just give that information about what it is, and that it's not a mental illness, and that and also just like empower the differences and the aspects of autism that bring that make us unique, and what's the word? Sorry, I'm like I'm not very good at speech. Yeah, just like we have all of these strengths and creativity and knowledge, and I mean, and most of my friends are on the spectrum to some degree as well.
Yeah, we tend to find each other.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just sort of like a attraction.
My friend group from middle school have like all been diagnosed with autism.
Me too.
Like misdiagnosed with ADD and like all these other things. And today, like we're all autistic.
Yeah,
and
it's
know that was time, but we were all friends,
and you're all just like kind of like different eccentric people, you know. That's kind of like how I've always been, and I never really understood anything else. Yeah, I never really got diagnosed with anything as a kid. They were just sort of like very confused about what exactly, like I remember my pediatrician thought I had ADHD, and my mom didn't believe it was real, so I never went through with a diagnosis for that as a kid. And I know that when I was 4, was the first time that it was brought to my mother's attention that I may be autistic, because she told me about it, because I have been questioning it since I was in my early 20s. And I remember one time that it came up with a friend of mine, because it would come up all the time, because I would have all these autistic traits and someone would mention it, or I would say something to a friend and they would think that was weird. Like I have early infancy memories. One of them is I was riding on the back of a blue bike with my dad, and it was like kind of raining, and I remember the cars being really loud and being like really scared. And I remember mentioning it to my dad once, and my dad used to build bikes, so he built this one too, and because he was talking about how he used to build bikes, and I brought it up. I was like, I remember this blue bike we were on, and he was like, how do you remember that? And I was like, he's like, did someone tell you? I was like, no one told me. It's just like a memory I have. And he's like, I only took you one time because you were screaming the whole time and you were 6 months old. There's no way that you can remember that. But I also remember like getting my diaper changed. I remember being bathed in a sink. And they're very real memories. I have like the whole sensory experience.
I have similar memories. Like I remember back in preschool, I was like talking recently to someone about how the way I interpreted things were always different, and so like I was very sensory sensitive, and so I would come home from school and I would just be spotless, like clean, and my mom's like, just get a little bit dirty so I know you had fun, because like so I went in the sandbox, rubbed the sandal over me, and then got out, and like I came home like covered in sand. And like I remember, like whoever I was speaking to was like, "What did someone tell you that story?" Like, or like, no, I remember that. I remember the decision-making process. Like I remember the entire thing, like about that happening and being confused, and being like, "Well, my mom just wants me to do this, though."
Yeah, I remember memories like vivid like that. Yeah,
I remember I graduated preschool early because I went to PEP, instead of my final year of preschool, which is like pre-K. And after the graduation ceremony, I didn't understand what it was. And I was like, oh, this was good practice for next year. And everyone had to explain to me that I wasn't coming back to preschool the next year. And like my mom's like, I don't remember that. And I remember it so clearly, like being so confused.
Yeah, I remember. I have memories from preschool too. I remember my teachers. I remember nap time and getting my back rubbed. Yeah. I remember having to go to timeout a lot. I remember one time being in timeout and like there was a kid in timeout with me and he was eating napkins, and so we ate napkins in timeout together. I remember someone teaching me how to tie my shoes because I think it wasn't until like first grade that I could tie my shoes. I remember like entire days, like very like before I was 4, it just very vividly. I was telling a friend about these memories, and she's like, "That's strange." She's like, that's weird that you remember those things. And I would just remember like going on my computer and just being like, are there other people that have early childhood memories? Like, is this really that weird? Like, why is that weird? Because to me, it's not, So I remember looking it up and I was about 25. And the things that came up were autism. And it was like, there still wasn't a lot of resources online yet about it. But the stuff that was there was all like me. It all explained me. Like everything that I do was like listed on like a list. So I remember calling my mother and just being like, "Mom, like, am I autistic?" Like, and and she's like, no. She's like, "You're not," because this family friend of ours has a kid that's autistic and he's like nonverbal and like, intellectually disabled. And she's like, you're not that. She's like, and then she said, but when you were 4, they were trying to tell me that you were autistic because you had I was very sensitive to touch. I even remember going to the doctor and them having the stethoscope on my skin and how cold it was and just being like, and I had a speech delay. So they were trying to diagnose me then. But what my mother said, she's like, what they were trying to say was that I was a bad mother. Because I guess there was like the stigma that
say that moms cause their kids to have autism.
Yeah. So, and she still has that stigma. Yeah. So like, there's so much misinformation and stigma and like false, like.
Yeah, and it was only like, I don't know, like 20 years ago that women could be diagnosed or like.
Yeah. So I could have been diagnosed when I was 4, but because there was like this false scientific evidence out there that it was caused by bad parents, my mom didn't go through with it because she was like, they're just saying that I'm a bad parent, you know? So it's very interesting, but, you know, now I'm just like, this is who I am, and there's no really getting around it. You know, there's obstacles to it, but there's also, it's very empowering knowing, you know, exactly what's going on, and that, you know, my neurology has, you know, a name. You know, I would get MRIs all the time as a kid because I had TIAs and stuff too. So I've always, you know, I've always known I'm neurologically different. I didn't know that there was a name for that until I got older. And I had, you know, all of the accommodations that are typical for kids on the spectrum. And I had all of the fixations as well. Like I had, I remember I was about 12 and I was, my special interest at that time, before that it was Van Gogh, but when I was 12, it was this musician named PJ Harvey. And like, I would, beg my mom to like get me like all of her CDs, like everything on eBay, posters, like t-shirts, like anything. I remember I made a patch on a pair of jeans that was like her. I had a 5-foot poster of her in my room. The first time she played an all ages concert, I was 16 and I went there with my dad. And that was like my obsession. None of my friends were into her. None of them wanted to listen to her at all. So I had stuff like that going on as a kid. And when I was about 8 years old, I was obsessed with Van Gogh. And I had this book I would carry around called Lust for Life. It's a Van Gogh like autobiography, or a biography, but it has a lot of his letters in it. And I carry that with me to school and want to talk about Van Gogh and his paintings to my friends, and nobody was interested in that either. So yeah, like it's interesting knowing that that's like a thing too, because I never really thought of that until I understood autism as being like a thing. You know what I mean?
And yeah, the projects we do, and
yeah. Because I've always been an artist as well, and as a kid, I would draw the same things over and over. Like I had this fixation with Garfield. I had this fixation with drawing witch faces at one time, and I won like a Halloween drawing contest in school, like 3 years in a row in elementary school, because I had this witch face I would draw. So, like I've been talking to a therapist every week now, and we talk about a lot of things. And one of the things we talked about recently was like how there may be like certain delays that we have, like be it like in language or speech or reading, or you know, whatever differences we may have in learning, that we have those. But my art ability, for example, and like other people have other abilities that surpass other people our age. Like when I was a kid, there weren't many other kids drawing at the level that I was drawing at. And at the same time, you know, I wasn't reading at the level that other kids were drawing at. So there's just like, or reading at. So we just have different strengths, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we're like incapable or like less than. That we just have a different way of learning and communicating.
We just focus on what we're interested in. We don't really care about other things, which has that savant label, but like we work really hard to be good at what we're good at. Like if you draw the same thing all the time, you're gonna be really, really, really good at it.
Yeah. And
so,
that's the kind of stuff that I do. It's like do the same thing.
Skill. And I feel like people are like, oh, you're just born with being like good in a certain area. It's like, no, I just worked really, really hard in just one area where everyone else did like disperses. And so you're gonna be like just okay at everything when you
Yeah. Yeah, like I can't even like I don't know what's going on TV or like the news or like I just my interests I'm very focused on them, and then I also have, you know, a job. So like that takes up all of my capacity. I don't have capacity for, you know, other things that other people have. Like some people read the newspaper and know all this random information, you know, that to me is just like it has nothing to do with like anything interesting to me. You know, I have my interests that I'm interested in, and those are those. You know, I have interests in music, and the interests that I have gotten me, you know, great friendships, jobs, you know, all sorts of things that have helped me, you know, in life just by having those focuses, because having like niche focuses means that you know that uh, you have a skill or a knowledge that is specialized, and people can um, benefit from what you're doing. So that's how I've always succeeded, and that's how I've always you know, survived, is through my own niche interests and skills. That's like the only way I've been able to survive. So, um, and I think that like having a very difficult childhood, and I'm a survivor of child abuse, and I'm a survivor of life and having to, you know, stay afloat in the world. I think, you know, having those challenges and needing to survive has helped me to be, um, you know, where I'm at, you know, um, to be,
yeah.
you know,
I feel like I
'cause I was,
work really hard at things because, you know, I grew up with like a sick sister and like, you know, like had a lot of stuff going on where I saw like everyone in my family worked really hard to make things happen. And so I feel like a lot of people who have lived that charmed life that never really had to struggle, they struggle more in working hard because they've never had to do it, where I've had to work really, really hard through school and really hard. And so when I'm doing work that I love, I work super hard at it because I love that I get to work hard on something I love instead of something that, you know, I don't care about. And that's made
yeah,
getting like jobs and networking and that kind of stuff so easy because
yeah,
it's just like I'm passionate about it. So someone asks me about autism or asks me about film or asks me about like any of my interests, I'm just like, yeah, I'll talk about that. That I'm so excited to share all the projects I've done in that area and all that kind of stuff. And
yeah. And it's great. Like
yeah.
that's how I've networked. That's how I've gotten work, you know, is through my interests. Like I used to work in the music industry for a music distributor, and they only hired people that had like very esoteric knowledge in music. Like part of the application was listing, you know, your top 10 favorite artists, you know, so it was very like specific to um, people working there that really understood what, you know, what they were doing and the type of music that they handled. You know, and I was a 22-year-old, you know, girl, and most of my colleagues were, you know, in their 40s and 50s and dudes.
I
But,
feel
you know,
that.
so having like that specialized interest that I had, you know, people would always be like, wow, like how do you know about all this? Like how do you know about that artist? How do you know about this music? And it's just like I just do. It's my interest. Like I'm very focused on it. I was very focused on it, you know. I didn't I wasn't interested in anything else for a long time. So, but it got me into, you know, getting jobs and having work and making friends with the same interests. And, you know, I do have, you know, I think there's this like misconception about autistic people too. Like we don't have friends and that we aren't social people. And, you know, maybe that's true for some autistic people, but I think that's true for like any neurology, really.
I
But
just feel like it's more like we don't know how. If they're the people that don't have them, and like I for a long time I didn't really have friends, but it didn't mean I didn't want them. I was so lonely, and
yeah,
once I was able to navigate that and find true friends, like I love hanging out with people, and especially like healthy people.
yeah,
Where it's like there's so many unhealthy friends out there, and I think like
yeah,
when you don't have friends, it's like so easy to get caught up in that. But I found like it's better not to.
yeah,
So that's why I often tell parents not to force their autistic children to socialize, because they're gonna attract the wrong people. Where like when
yeah,
they're ready.
yeah.
It has to be a want of theirs, or it's just not gonna work out. Where
That's like that with everything.
So now I feel like since I've left school and not like been forced to be around certain people, like now I get to choose who I hang out with. It's just been so nice. And I feel so fulfilled socially, which I didn't realize like how much of a hole was there that needed to be filled. And so it's been really nice that I find people that feel that, and happy to see me, and I'm happy to see them. It's just
Yeah,
it's really nice, instead of like, oh, you're just you came to school and you're here. Might as well hang out with you. Like I feel like a lot of people did that, and then as soon as we stopped like having to be together, they're like, oh, I don't really want to hang out with you. Like where for me I always had like excitement to see people, and so it's made that more obvious to me. And so I feel like most people on the spectrum, that's their experience, is if they're not hanging out with people, just they don't know how, or they and like we've been talking about, the best way to do it is through common interests. I don't understand how to really make friends at like a party or something, because it's
me
like
either.
people from all over with all different things going on, where like if you go somewhere where it's like, this is an art place for people of artists,
Yeah,
okay, we talk about art, so I'm gonna meet other people who like art. Like if you go to somewhere that's like a film festival, I like films, everyone here should like films, otherwise why are they here? And like, so we
yeah,
can talk about that, and it's appropriate. And so if we're like, oh, you like films, and you like the films I like, let's talk about it. And then that leads to like hanging out and doing other things. And that's like, I feel like that's the best way to make friends.
yeah. That's how I've been able to make friends. Like I've never been able to just go to a bar or whatever, like a party. I used to go, you know, would be invited to parties and stuff when I was younger and go and be so just overwhelmed and confused. And like I would always have to like take a benzo. And a lot of times I would get so overwhelmed that I would just leave. And or have like I've had meltdowns at parties, you know, that friends have brought me to, and like I didn't know they were meltdowns, you know, because I wanted, like, just remember this one time I wanted to leave and my friend wasn't, you know, letting me leave, so I freaked out. And it took, you know, it's like for me it was like trial and error, like knowing, understanding, you know, what I could handle and what I couldn't. And I've always known that I was very sensitive to like the sensory experience of like a party or a bar environment. And I usually would have to leave or like have someone with me that didn't like leave me somewhere, because I end up just like going in a corner or like hiding. So like I don't really even go really anywhere now unless it's something that I'm really interested with people that have that I know. So
Yeah,
I think
didn't have
it takes time.
a party, like birthday party for, like, they were always like, oh, I'll invite like 4 people, or like, you know, it was always like that. That was my choice because I didn't really like parties. And like this last year I like got up the nerve, and for my 22nd I had like a nice big one. And I was really surprised how everyone handled it, because I have a lot of friends with social anxiety and all those kind of things, and everyone was just seemed to have a really nice time. And so maybe I'll try it again another time. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I just
right. People
a lot. It takes a lot of energy, so like I can't do it that often. So like normal hangouts are like just like a couple people.
Yeah.
The big parties take a lot out of me, so
Yeah.
I think
too.
they can be fun once in a while to do, and I want to support my friends, because I know what it's like to throw parties and no one show up, or you know, everyone cancels last minute or whatever it is. So I try to support my friends, and at least go like, I'm here and I support you, even if I don't like hang out with anyone else.
That's something I need to do more too. I'm really bad about like going. My friends will invite me to things, and I'm very bad about going to these things all the time. And then I end up being very isolated because people stop inviting me to things. But like I get really overwhelmed because I work. I have to work a lot, and just like working and like dealing with people at work all the time takes a lot out of me in like many ways, where I'm just very drained. And I think people don't really understand that like you can't like work and then go out and work and then go. So many people can just like do one thing and then go do another thing. Like I can't like do too many things. You know what I mean?
Is a lot.
Yeah. I need like time to like recuperate, you know, like recharge.
So I do film, so I totally understand that, because that's a lot of energy. And yeah, so I've been recently back in that world, and it's just like, whoo, I forgot how much energy this takes, and like getting like
I get like the brain drain.
So yeah, I just keep finding myself sleeping. But it's worth it for me. And like when
you're at the age
to my friends, they get it more. But like when you're not in that world, you can't fully get it.
Yeah,
there's people who just
and like
have energy
more social
all the time.
Yeah.
They're just like, why don't you just do it? And I'm like, because I don't have that energy you do.
I know. I get like brain drain, like where like it's almost like it's sort of like I don't even know. It's like kind of like the front of my face is just like it's shut off. It's like shut. Some of me is like some of my brain is like shut down. So like people can talk to me and then like I won't process it at all. So if I get to that level, that means I need to like go and recuperate somewhere and then like come back at another time. So like it's just like knowing my limits and my capacity. When I was in my 20s, I was able to be a little bit more social. I had more energy and stuff. And I used to book, I booked a few shows for like artists, musicians that I really liked, like ambient musicians and stuff, when I lived in Boston. And I met friends through that, you know, putting on these shows. And that's how I made it out to LA, is like my friend Christelle, who is a ambient musician. Where's she from? I think she's from the Netherlands. She came. I booked a couple of shows for her. It was about 23. It was about your age. In Boston, and she stayed with me, and those were really fun. And then she came out to LA, and she met a lot of people out here, and then she told me to like friend them on like Facebook, and like told me how great it was out here, whatever. And then I just started communicating with people out here and came to visit here. And that's how I eventually moved here, is because there was a lot of people out here with the same interests as me. And I like the weather and the relaxed environment. Here's my kitty. And when I was in my late teens, when I was 18, I actually founded a socialist youth organization. I used to put on protests, anti-war protests, and give speeches and stuff in New York. And I was an activist for a minute, and then got burnt out on that. And so yeah, I've done so many different things. My interests have like been, they'll get so focused on one thing, and then I'll go to like the next thing. But the thing that really sticks with me is my interest in music and art. And I'm interested in film too, like surrealist films. I've been in some. But my main thing is music history for me. And a lot of the people into the genres that I'm into tend to be also on the spectrum. I found, which is really interesting. There are certain interests out there that attract people like us through how just like specialized they are. So I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I'm really bad at this.
So well.
Like I'm so like I talk in circles, I feel like, and I hope people can understand me. This is my cat again. Hey. She wants to play fetch really bad.
You
want to play fetch? You want to play fetch? She's been playing fetch. Go get it.
A lot of us on the spectrum are very attracted to the animal world, where like I know a lot of people like that was one of their first special interests, is like a certain kind of animal or just animals in general.
Me too. I was obsessed with elephants as a kid. I had a little stuffed elephant too. I used to bring with me everywhere, and I used to see a therapist in school. I would see the counselor once a week in school as a kid to touch base with things. And I had this little stuffed elephant that I loved. I used to bring with me, that I used to talk about when I was like in 3rd grade. So yeah, I've always like, I'm not a cat or a dog person. I'm just like an animal person. Some people are like, I like cats, I like dogs. I'm like, I like all of them. They're different. Yeah. He's being silly right now. Like, look at this.
Trying to get attention.
What is that? What is that, Blob?
Yeah, like my dog likes to lay on the couch back here when I do the live stream, and he'll pop his head up, just like. Yeah, he has a bone today, so he's laying on the floor doing that. But it's so funny. I'm like, do you know that the live stream is happening? Like, you're trying to get my attention in the screen. Just, hello.
She's being weird. Yeah, I'm always like, I'm one of those people who my friends will have an animal that's very like particular or like difficult or like only likes them, but will just like me immediately. And they're always like, oh my God.
When I go to autism events, it's like so comfortable just going up and saying hi to everyone, where like I go to, it's just like regular event, like he's more by my side. I'm like, he likes the neurodiverse world.
Yeah, like I understand. And animals are very like they work on like the intuition level. She's bringing me a thing to play fetch. She's gonna play fetch.
Yeah. Yeah, I was doing
I just
photography, and I can get really close to animals to take pictures of them. And like I know a lot of other photographers that need the super long lenses because they can't get that close. I'm like, my lens is like this. And I just like walk up to the bird. It's right here.
yeah, like I just I don't know. I can understand what they want and what they need, and it's just sort of like a you know, like my friend had these dogs in Boston that I used to take for walks. And I would always know when they had to go to the bathroom. Like I would just know they could be like in the other room or something, and I would just know that they needed to go. And it's like hard to explain. It's like when you're close to an animal, you just kind of like know what's going on with them. You know, it's like an intuition level. And my cat's playing fetch. My cat thinks she's a dog. She plays fetch with little pieces of paper. You want it? She's gonna go get it. But yeah, like even with my cat, a lot of people don't play fetch with their cats. So I think it might be an autistic thing too, just to like be very close with our animals. Like, you know, I understand her and what she needs, and she's a brat. This is a brat right here. This is a spoiled brat. What? She's tolerating this. Yeah. Oh, now she's attacking me. Are you mad at me? Are you mad? Did I embarrass you?
I really like. I feel like because with my service dog, I take him everywhere, and he can get embarrassed by things I do, like he's my kid, and I'm the mom who just like does something ridiculous. And I feel like he just gets embarrassed, like, Mom, why would you do that in front of other people? Like,
she gets embarrassed too. If I pick her up in front of somebody, she'll get so mad and so embarrassed. She'll get mad at me. Like she'll just like she just did now. She did a little nip. She was like, "Why did you just pick me up?" She's funny, and she wants to play fetch now. But yeah, I don't. What else? What else can we talk about?
Was that one of your paintings behind you?
Yeah, this is one of the ones I brought to the thing we did a couple weeks ago. Was it?
Yeah.
It wasn't last Friday. I'm having trouble with time these days. Was it Friday before that, right?
Yeah, I think it was like two weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I put balloons on it, and I kind of like how they kind of dissolved a little bit. I like those colors together, so I made a painting dedicated to those colors together with some glitter and balloons. But yeah, I've taken a little break from the portrait project because I've had so many things going on that I'm taking care of, you know, in my life. It's hard for me to like focus on so many things. Like I've been finally taking care of a lot of my like health stuff and I see a therapist every week. I see psychiatrists, and then, you know, I have the fibromyalgia stuff going on. So I've just been like sorting out everything and trying to get like a rhythm, you know, and now I work 5 days a week. So just getting that rhythm together, and then, you know, hopefully soon I can start that again. Yeah, I started my first portrait. It's still in the works. And then I think I'm going to do probably about 50 and then compile them into like a book, you know, get pictures of them and put them in
cool.
a book. Yeah, because I really want to get, you know, like you said, it's more, it's called But You Don't Look Autistic, and it's like going to be portraits of, you know, girls, trans people, you know, people of color that are on the spectrum, because there's a lot of I feel like it's getting better now, but there's been a lot of misrepresentation and a lot of bias as to what the autism spectrum looks like and what it behaves like. And we all don't behave the same. We're all not the same. We're not all in the same meat suits. We're not all the same gender or sexuality or, you know, skin color, nationality, or culture. And the environments that we're each individually in as people shapes us as people. And, you know, we may be on the spectrum and have, you know, autistic traits, but they will always be imbued with who we are as people. And we can't separate the two from each other. So kind of having a very narrow perspective about what autism looks like, as far as it being like, you know, a white boy, and what a white boy is imbued with in his culture and environment, is different from everybody else. So the way that he may behave is not necessarily the way like I'm going to behave, because my environment and my person, my life experience is a little bit different than his, you know. And that's kind of like what, in my own like autism, what do you call it? I guess activism would be the word, is sort of bringing the attention to the fact that, you know, that there's so much diversity in us, and there's the, you know, the neurodiversity is what brings us all together as sort of a community, but we're all diverse as people in our experiences, and there's not one experience as far as like how that is, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, for
so,
sure. I'm definitely behind that. It's interesting. We have people from all communities on the spectrum, and we have huge numbers of different groups of minorities that belong to the autism community or the Asperger community, whatever you want to define it as. And there's just like so many people not getting diagnosed because they don't know that, you know, even to today, that females can be on the spectrum, that like different people can be on the spectrum, that you can have more than one diagnosis, that you can be ADD and autistic. You can, you know, like there's so many different things that are preventing people from realizing this is what it is that is.
And some people don't have access to the resources. There are communities of people that don't have access to the resources to get diagnosed too, which is another issue that we have with it. And I feel like, you know, despite all of the information and that we have on it now, there's still like, it's still lacking in the access to those resources for, you know, everybody who needs a diagnosis, and B, the accommodations for that are not available to everyone either. I, you know, for me, like, it's another special interest of mine, because, you know, it's a genetic, it's a it's a like a dominant genetic inheritance of autism. Like autism is very genetic, and just how it not only affects, you know, the genes, but the structure of the neurons and the structure of the nervous system in the brain, and how that works is an interest of mine. Like not even isolated to autism, but just in general, how that all works is very interesting to me and enlightening to know about. And I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah, someone I met more recently on the spectrum, her special interest has been true crime, and so we've talked about, you know, the psychology of that, and that's like super interesting. And so listening to her talk about like all the facts she knows about it is so interesting. Like it's not a topic that I would normally dive into, but when like someone's so excited about it, like you want to hear more.
Yeah.
And so like I'm like I know a little bit about psychology of like psychopath, sociopath, like so like I can bring that to the table when we discuss this, but I don't know like all of the murderers and serial killers and all that. So like, but we were able to like find that level ground and start talking, and build that connection that way. So
yeah, I love crime too. Probably not to that level, but it's one of those things where, because I'm interested in psychology myself. So yeah, it's a very, what do you call it? It's another very pattern-oriented interest, you know, noticing the similarities in, you know, these people, and relating them in a psychological way and how they, you know, behave and what their experiences are and what their,
yeah, I think
you
that's
know,
why I like
neuropath.
writing so much, because it's like I get to be in someone else's head and see like why they make the decisions they do, and it just creates a lot of empathy to get in this experience someone else's story, and that's why I love film so much, and why I'm excited about that we're having more and more neurodiverse characters out there so that people can see like the private moments we have without actually like videotaping someone's tantrum, but we can experience that through film. The stories of autism, and there's so many of them that are so interesting, and I feel like we're creating through that a better world, and that gets to see that, oh, when I have autism, that's what you mean. And they can bring up other stories besides Rain Man.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know what? Accommodations for people on the autism spectrum don't just benefit people with autism, they benefit everyone. Like it's not just beneficial for us to, you know, make the world comfortable, you know, because a lot of the things that, you know, we need to make ourselves comfortable are aren't just comfortable for us, they're comfortable for everybody, you know what I mean? We may have more sensitivity where we do need these accommodations, and we need, you know, more individualized, you know, education and different learning experience, but you know that benefits us and helps us grow, but it's not just beneficial for us, it's beneficial for everybody, you know, to have those things.
Yeah, like on our film set we have zen zones and stuff like that, where I don't know if it was created for because we have people on the spectrum there, but everyone's allowed to use it. You know, like the actors have their dressing room, but there's like different, not everyone has that on set. So they have these little tents they set up where you can go in and take a break for a few minutes and get some quiet in there. And all of these like different areas like that. And I'm like, why isn't that everywhere? That's so
I know.
hard to
Yeah.
like we need like those breaks and stuff, but doesn't everyone? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So if you know loud concerts,
everybody wants soft clothes
area you can go into, or you know, it's like I'll go in here for a few minutes and then I can return to the concert instead of having to go home.
Yeah.
And missing half of it. You know, like I feel like we're not the only people that need that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like I went to a music festival once, the only time I've ever gone, because I was helping my friends sell clothing at like a stand at a festival, and it was removed from like the main festival in sort of like this small area. So it was nice. It was like quiet. But I ventured out to the music festival one day and I got so overwhelmed because there were so many people. It was so loud and I couldn't, I got lost because I was getting very like, I was getting overloaded so fast that I couldn't remember like where it came from or like how to get anywhere. And there was like no maps and like, I kept asking people for directions and they were so unclear. And I just remember just like breaking down and crying because I got lost. But finally I made my way back to like the area where our tents were and where the stand was. But it was like, there wasn't like clear like maps to how to get, or like routes to get back to where you needed to be. Like you really have to like pay attention or something. And it's just like, why aren't there like, little areas where you could like sit and like calm down, and B, like just people to help you get back to where you needed to be. Because I got lost for like 3 hours. Like going around and I don't go to music festivals either because we also camped for, it was like almost a week, and like I was over it in like a couple days because like I wasn't in my normal environment. I wasn't able to like, do my like have my normal day in my normal house.
I don't understand camping for a concert, like for film festival.
It was like,
I don't...
Yeah, it was like it was a music festival, like in the desert, so you had to camp out there. And I got just like, because I need to stim. So like if I'm around people and I'm like camping and stuff, like I don't do that, you know what I mean? Like I do that in private, you know what I mean? So if I can't stim, then I start to like get the
overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's like, it's hard to even like describe it to anyone who doesn't experience it, but it's like I just start to shut down. Like my brain just starts to shut down. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's like paralyzed.
Like you're suppressing a need. So like when you're so hungry, you can't think about what you want to eat. Like yeah.
Yeah, it was like very like out of my element, and like then I start getting very short because then that's when I'll start to like snap. You know what I mean? And like it's like I feel like I turn into somebody who's like not nice. If I can't like.
So it's time to start wrapping up. So if anyone has any final questions, please leave them below. And I have links in the description to the Neurospace, the support group that Stephanie has on the Facebook. I think it's a support group, right? Well, it's just like a cool group on the Facebook for celebrating autism and our strengths and
sharing your interests and just like meeting community, like it just kind of like what is the word, connecting with people on the spectrum or ADHDs, for neurodiverse people in general. It's not even just focused just on autism. I wanted to make it inclusive for anybody that, you know, wants to connect with other neurodiverse people. So yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah. Is there anything else?
Go to OurTism.com to sign up for a support group tomorrow, or go to Meetup. Thank you guys for joining. Do you have any last message to tell everyone? Like some final words?
Thanks for tuning in to my Ramble channel. You can feel free to join Neurospace. And I think my page is linked there, but you know, I also have a page for the paintings that I'm working on in spurts. So yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say.
Everyone, thanks for watching. Come back.
Thank you.
Next week. I do every week. Yeah. Stay colorful. Bye.
Bye.